In 400 BC, a Greek philosopher sat alone and asked a question no one had ever asked before. What happens if you take a piece of matter, a stone, a drop of water, a grain of sand, and you keep cutting it in half? And then in half again, and again, and again. Does it ever stop? His answer changed everything. And the strangest part? Modern physics would prove him right. Over 2,000 years later. His name was Democritus, born around 460 BC in a small Greek city called Abdera. By the time he died, he had written over 70 books. Almost none of them survived. What we know about him, we know mostly through his enemies, and his biggest enemy was Plato. Plato hated Democritus so much that he reportedly wanted every one of his books burned. Not because Democritus was wrong about politics or morality, but because of one simple, radical idea. Democritus believed that everything in the universe, every rock, every ocean, every living thing, every thought, was made of tiny, invisible, indestructible particles. He called them atomos, from the Greek word meaning uncuttable. This wasn't mysticism. This wasn't religion, this was pure logic. His reasoning went like this. If you could keep dividing matter forever, you'd end up with nothing. And nothing can't build something. So there must be a point where division stops. A smallest possible thing, something that cannot be cut. The atom. And here is where it gets remarkable. Democritus didn't just say atoms existed, he described how they behaved. He said atoms moved constantly through empty space, through a void. He said different atoms had different shapes and sizes. He said the way atoms combined and separated was what created every different material in the world. Wood, water, fire, flesh. All of it was just atoms arranging themselves in different patterns. In 400 BC, with no microscope, no laboratory, no instruments at all, just a mind asking the right question. So why haven't you heard of Democritus? Because Plato won. Plato's universe had no void, no empty space, no invisible particles. Matter was made of perfect geometric forms, ideal and eternal. The universe was purposeful, spiritual, designed. And Aristotle, Plato's greatest student, agreed. When Aristotle said there was no void, people listened for centuries because Aristotle became the intellectual backbone of Western civilization. His ideas were adopted by the Catholic Church. His cosmology became doctrine. To disagree with Aristotle was, at times, to risk your life. Democritus and his atoms were forgotten. For almost 2,000 years, the dominant view of matter was Aristotle's. That everything was made of 4 elements, earth, water, fire, and air, in different combinations and proportions. This idea, with almost no scientific evidence, survived from ancient Greece all the way to the Renaissance. Democritus had been right, and the world spent 2,000 years ignoring him. Then, in 1803, an English chemist named John Dalton published something that would change science forever. His atomic theory. The idea that all matter is made of tiny, indivisible particles. That atoms of the same element are identical. That chemical reactions are just atoms rearranging. Dalton arrived at this through careful experiment, measuring chemical reactions, weighing elements, tracking proportions, but the core of his idea. Democritus had written it down in 400 BC. Now here is where the story becomes truly strange. Democritus said atoms were the smallest possible thing, indestructible, uncuttable, the end of the line. He was almost right. In the 20th century, physicists discovered that atoms themselves could be split. Inside every atom, protons, neutrons, electrons, and inside protons and neutrons, even smaller particles called quarks. So Democritus was wrong about atoms being the smallest thing, but the deeper idea that matter is made of fundamental, discrete units moving through empty space, combining and separating to form everything we see. That idea is the foundation of quantum physics, and quantum physics gets even stranger. When physicists began studying atoms in detail, they discovered that particles don't behave like tiny solid balls. They behave more like clouds of probability. An electron doesn't have a fixed position. It exists in multiple places at once until you observe it. Then it collapses into one location. This is called the wave-particle duality, and it is one of the most verified, most precise theories in all of science. Democritus imagined atoms as solid, defined objects. Reality turned out to be far weirder than that. But consider this. In a world where the dominant view was that matter was made of fire and earth and spiritual essence, Democritus looked at a stone and said, "There are invisible things inside this that you will never see, moving through empty space, and everything is made of them." He didn't have the math, he didn't have the instruments, he had logic and curiosity, and the willingness to follow an idea all the way to the end. Here is what I find most haunting about this story. Democritus wrote over 70 books. Not a single complete work survived. What we know of his ideas comes from people who were arguing against him, people who thought he was wrong, and yet he was right. The universe is made of atoms moving through empty space. Chemistry is atoms rearranging. The diversity of all matter, every color, every texture, every living thing, emerges from those tiny particles combining in different ways. He described this with no technology, no peer review, no funding, in a world where his greatest rival had the power of institutions and empires behind him. The question that stays with me is this: how many other ideas, how many other correct, revolutionary insights were buried not because they were wrong, but because the wrong person had more power? Democritus spent his life thinking about the smallest possible things, and what he found was the structure of everything. If you found this video interesting, the next one goes even deeper into a civilization that described the solar system thousands of years before modern astronomy. That video is already up. I'll see you there.
If this made you think differently, like the video, tell me your thoughts below, and subscribe to the Lithic Code. The next video goes even deeper.